Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Perfect Prey. I'm glad you're here. My name is Dr. Christine Marie Cocchiola, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and have a doctorate in clinical social welfare, where I researched coercive control and the impact on both adult and child victims. Most importantly, I am a survivor and a protective parent. Victims and survivors of coercive control are never to blame. But I chose the name Perfect Prey because coercive controllers, who are individuals who apparently have characterologically disordered personalities, do choose who to prey upon. They choose people who tend to be agreeable and conscientious, perhaps loyal to a fault, fixers, optimistic, and empathic. Or these coercive controllers prey upon those who are most vulnerable, including our children. It's part of their plan to gain control. How do we help our children when they're experiencing systematic, unacknowledged child abuse? We need to understand how these coercive controllers, harmful individuals, attempt to exert their power over us and our children. We need to look beyond a trauma-informed lens, but also layer it with a coercive control lens. So, let's engage in personal power conversations that will create the protective parts that will derail the coercive controller from his plan. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Perfect Prey podcast. I'm so glad you're here as I'm trying to elevate conversations of young people who have suffered coercive control when they were children. So now adults, some people I interview while they are still young people, and they come on the podcast and they discuss their experiences of suffering coercive control. So I'm so honored to have Jessi Hersey here, who is going to talk about her experiences and also about the Twin Flames Universe cult. So thank you, Jessi, for being here.
Thank you for having me. This experience I haven't actually talked about publicly. I've talked about it privately when it happened, but I didn't do it right away. When I was younger, which probably played a role in me not picking up drum set or anything musically for years. Actually, I haven't picked up a drum set still, but I crave it because I did love it until this adult did this to me, but in a white male. He was my drum instructor. I don't know, I suck with age. I was at least 10, maybe 11. I wasn't even close to the teens. And I really wanted to learn drum set. So my mom, and this was so I probably was at least 12, during a time when my parents were getting a divorce. And we would go every Wednesday, I think it was, Wednesday or Thursday. It was private lessons, so it was just him and I. And he would always show me. He would never touch me. And anyways, being an autistic person, which I was not diagnosed then, I was diagnosed in adulthood. I didn't touch anyways. So the only way I like touch is if I trust you and if I count you as a friend or someone who is trustworthy in my life. That's what I go based off of. And because of this person, trust became an issue. But so to continue, we had an actual teacher-student relationship. That's what it was supposed to be. There was a lesson, I think, 3 or 4 months in, because I was with him for a couple years, but 3 or 4 months in, I thought it was weird when he started grabbing my hands. So this was the first thing, but I didn't catch on to this or understand this. Again, my brain wasn't fully developed, and being autistic, I went, oh, cool, he's just teaching me. So he would start grabbing one hand, eventually both hands, but it's not like I didn't know how to make a beat. I had already learned the basics of rhythm. And eventually he would sit behind me and grab both hands. This was a gradual process over time. I never told my mom. I never questioned it. Eventually he would grab right here and more of my body parts. But I thought, hey, this is part of the lesson. So this is what you're supposed to get. He continued this for a year or so. And eventually he made it to the part where I got really uncomfortable that I actually ran out of the lesson. And I couldn't help it. I called my mom and said, I don't want to do drum set anymore, because that was, yes, we never made it to the actual sex portion of it, but that is sexual assault. That is a form of it. And I, being a child, was not aware of what that was. And the fact he did it gradual, so insidiously, coercively, and without ever saying, without ever apologizing. He, even when my mom came to find me crying, we had a little session. of my mom went, "I no longer want services from you," and he played the card of victim of, "Oh, but I love having her so much. She's so great. She could be in a band," which was actually a dream of mine to be in a band playing drum set, which that died that day. Yeah, that's I don't know. You can take that however you want to.
Absolutely heartbreaking. I think you're talking about so many things. First of all, the violation, the betrayal by someone that you trusted, right? I think this is what we know, that child sexual abuse is very prevalent. And I always say that not all perpetrators of not all coercive controllers are child predators, but all child predators are using the same exact grooming tactics as child predators, as coercive controllers, excuse me. So what we know is that the grooming process is the same. It's identical, except that people who are child predators are going to move into the sexual realm. And so I am so very grateful, as I'm sure you are. It sounds trite for me to say, that you got up and ran out, because I think there's a couple of things that were going on. And I have been doing child sexual abuse work my entire career since the age of 19. And I actually have a training called The Stranger. And because we all think the people we know are safe. And the reality is, child predators and anyone who is a coercive controller always shows up in our life as someone we think is nice, that we think that they're actually decent human beings, and that actually they're trying to exert power and control, and in your case, coercion, to gain sexual access. And I am so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry he betrayed you, but I am so grateful that you ran and that your mother believed you, because I have so many clients over the years where their parents didn't believe them. They didn't want to actually believe that someone they knew and loved or liked could do this. And I think in your case, on top of that, abusers take advantage of our vulnerabilities. So I know you weren't diagnosed yet with autism, but you were certainly a child who wants to please adults. Like, we, as children, we're taught to honor adults, to respect them, to not create a boundary because we're not supposed to. What are you talking about? Just go sit over there with Uncle John. He wants to give you a hug. Like, we are taught that over and over again in childhood. And then add in that maybe there's a neurodivergency, and how abusers will capitalize on any vulnerability. Children is a number one, being a child is a number one vulnerability. Having a neurodivergency is another vulnerability, right? And so in my perfect world, everyone as a parent would be teaching their children about the parts of their body that no one should ever touch, and that children should have agency, should have the voice to be able to say, don't do that, and that they would be supported in talking that way and creating boundaries. And I think a lot of parents don't realize that perpetrators are going to find children that they can prey upon. I'll be a drum teacher. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'll be a drum teacher. I will have access to children my entire life if I'm a drum teacher. I appreciate you sharing this vulnerability and doing it here for the first time. We need more people to share these stories so that we can hold perpetrators accountable. Yeah.
What I know, if he doesn't do drum set anymore, I know my mom, she had trouble. She was upset with herself for not seeing the signs. She actually blamed herself, but she does this anyways. But I have a feeling she's also autistic like me, since it's genetic. But she came from abuse herself too. So she had a lot of trouble grappling with the fact this happened. Thankfully, it didn't go as far as it goes for most children in that situation. I think because of my neurodiversity, there's certain touches, certain things I can and cannot handle. And his hand was very dry and gross. And I still remember it very well because textures, being autistic, are a thing for me. And I didn't like any of his textures. Like, certain textures I like. I like the feeling of my mom's hand because she takes care of it. She keeps it soft. I like the feeling of my cats. They're soft. I have been showing this off and will continue, so autistic people feel safe with this too. This is a fidget. I love Pokemon. This is Charmander. This is my fidget, who's soft, and I like shapes. I like this shape. A lot of neurodivergent people like shapes. and everything about him was disgusting. He smelled like alcohol. He smelled like smoke. We have really good senses, is the best way to put it. If you're neurodivergent and you don't know it yet, you have a really high sense that most people don't smell or feel. And in this case, I could smell his breath when he spoke, which was of smoke and alcohol. It was disgusting. I think it was whiskey, honestly. Now that I'm adult, I've learned whiskey smells.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So being sensitive to those things was probably helpful for you, which is really wonderful. So in your case, having the neurodivergency may have been one of the things that actually helped you to escape.
Yeah.
And that's pretty remarkable. And just for the listeners, just to be clear, and I know you're not at all insinuating this, but I think what happens is also when people are substance users, whether it's alcohol or some other substance, we blame behaviors on the substance. Or I think you and I talked about this on your podcast. We blame behaviors on a mental health issue when actually behaviors are character traits that are problematic, that have nothing to do with mental health, have nothing to do with substance use. Like abusers can get more violent when they drink, sure. But the character, the traits of the human being are still there if it's a pattern of behavior. And just because someone is drinking and perhaps trying to coerce and control a child, it doesn't mean the drinking is the problem, is the point that I'm trying to make. And some people think that. And no, that's not the problem, is the behavior, not the alcohol use. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us and for sharing that. I hope to continue to elevate these stories. There are so many children. I have numerous clients who have lost custody to their children when they have disclosed that their children disclosed sexual abuse by the perpetrator, the father. And so these moms will go to court and think it is an emergency. They'll try to remove his time with their children, and abusers will come into the court system and say, she just doesn't want me to have a relationship with our children. She's an alienator. She is trying to take away my time with my children. And I have had moms lose entire custody to the predators. And so this is a subject matter that is so important. And you're speaking out about it publicly I can't even tell you how powerful it is, really.
Thank you for that. And on behaviors, since I actually work with, and I use this term, which everyone who isn't part of the community seems to have their own perspective on it, but I'm taking the word back. So I was a child of special needs, and I work with kids of special needs too. That's part of my day job, and we focus on behaviors, and that's what I love part of your work. I've watched some of your videos just to get a better feel and understanding how you do this. We focus on behaviors. So even if you are someone with multiple disabilities, or you're still treated just like everyone else, but the behavior changes, there's specific ways you can change a behavior. And I like that you focus on the behavior. I fully agree. We shouldn't be focusing on all these other factors that have nothing to do with the behavior. Like sometimes changing a behavior for attention is ignoring it. If someone's just looking for attention, you literally just ignore it. And that's something that took me forever to learn, doing that with kids, because it felt horrible to me. Because when I was younger, I got that too, being a kid with special needs. But then I realized, I was purposely being a pain to that person. So, of course, they were ignoring me to change my behavior, which didn't work because, funny enough, my skill as an autistic person is behavior. I can see it. I can see what's going to happen. As a child, I definitely couldn't. Around 14 or 15 is when my abilities and behaviors really started kicking in. But I can see where that behavior is going to go, if it's going to be dangerous or if it's going to be safe. And the work I do every day, you could get bitten, you could get your hair pulled, you could get scratched, you could be bleeding at the end of the day due to behaviors. So if you're not aware of where it's going to go, and it's not because I don't like the stereotype and judgment that comes with that. Those who bite, who pull your hair, who scratch, that's due to me, like being an autistic person, I get it. That's due to the environment and too much stimulation happening. So if you don't know how to regulate that and haven't been taught that, which majority of children I work with in school settings, because we pick them up from school, they have not learned to regulate because those teachers are not neurodivergent or have disabilities themselves, so they don't know how to teach that. Unless you are someone who is that, no offense to those that are straight white women, because that's mainly the only people that are doing it without a disability. If you don't have a disability, you don't have the perspective of, hey, this is too much. You just have what you read from a book, which is not real life situation. I
Very-
experience it, so I feel for them. I get it. And I can give them a solution that someone who's only read a book can't. I can give them those solutions like, I get nervous talking. I do this so I can fidget and be able to stay calm and regulated.
Yeah. No, children will show us how they feel before they tell us
Yep.
how they feel. And so that is so imperative for people to understand that if a child's really angry or frustrated or behaving in a way that feels inappropriate, we have to ask ourselves, what are they feeling at their core in their body, right? Is it fear? Is it, again, that frustration? What are they actually feeling? Do they feel alone? And my brother is a specialist who works in the autism world. He's a behaviorist, right? And he often gives this analogy where imagine that you're in a box and you can see everything going on around you, but you can't actually communicate with anyone around you because you're in this box, and how stifling that is and how overwhelming that is. And so, of course, when you're trapped, when you feel trapped, when you feel like you don't have an outlet, eventually you're going to behave in ways that don't feel normal. Listen,
Really.
I, I did it
Yeah.
in my own abusive relationship where sometimes I would have out of character behaviors because I was so frustrated and felt trapped. I think that's the misunderstanding that's out there, is that people don't understand that if somebody's behaving that way, oftentimes they're behaving in that bottom part of the brain, which is the reptilian part of the brain, where they're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. They're like, boom, sometimes. And that you telling someone to stop that in that moment is not going to stop it. It's going to make it worse. What's going to stop it is being attuned. And I think what you're really speaking about is that you have a really amazing ability to attune to these young people who are experiencing these behaviors, because you can feel it in your own body what they're experiencing. You have that sixth sense. You have an extra sense about what they're experiencing. And they know it. And so what happens is when they know someone gets it, I bet you you are remarkable at this because they know you get them. And all of a sudden you're able to co-regulate with them. They come to a space of, I'm not in this alone. I don't have to be afraid. Someone gets me. Someone feels what I'm feeling. And that is true, like affective empathy, like you are with them. And that is something that I think that a lot of children who are suffering coercive control in their family systems, and I know you're going to briefly talk about the cult, but when you're living in these family systems and you don't even know you're being abused and nobody else acknowledges that it's abuse, what's going to happen? You're going to have dysregulated behaviors. You're going to feel so alone. And you're going to behave in ways that people don't quite get, or you're going to be hyper focused on success, maybe. And everybody's gonna be like, oh, they're doing great. They're an A student. No, is that a trauma response?
Yeah.
Could be a trauma response. Yeah. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about the Twin Flames universe, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And about the Netflix series, because I think that's important to direct people to that.
Yes, I can even send you the link to that too. I think it
Perfect.
still will be on whenever you have this go on. But so I was on Escaping Twin Flames, the docuseries, and Ball and Cecilia are awesome. And same as the entire editing team, like Mimi, I can't name everyone. Big, large team. They took each one of our stories. So yes, they highlight some stories, but they highlight mainly the families who still have children that are currently still in there. So Twin Flames Universe, for those that have never heard of it or this is new, they are pretty much a cult. And Dr. Lalich, who is an expert, has said they are a cult. Therefore, we can say they are a cult. They are an online cult, I should say. And it's not a new thing. So I want to highlight that. Online cults have existed since the 1980s. They just aren't spoken about as much because they are worldwide. This cult takes those who have mental health issues, who are the most vulnerable. So they do take that, but they are mainly forcing the idea of white, cisgendered people. So divine feminine, divine masculine. I was one of the ones in the group. So part of the second wave, since they had 3 waves, that were told they were a male in a female body. Not exactly those words. They said you're a divine masculine. So I was coerced to believe in something that I've never felt. It was a huge red flag that led to me leaving in 2020, but I didn't leave right away because cults, which even to this day, they'll probably be listening to this day, they follow you, they stalk you. I have picture proof, so if they say they aren't, I see you, I know you, you're subscribed to my channel too. They follow you, they make sure that you are still aligned to the coerciveness that you got within there. So me getting coerced to cut my hair, I didn't have to change my name because thankfully it's a neutral name, Jessi. Change my pronouns, which was the hardest. To
So you had to change your pronouns. And how old were you when you joined?
I'm really bad with age. I know I was an adult. I know I was
over
going
18.
into my 30s. Yeah, that's all I know. I was going into my 30s.
Got it.
And I was in there for 3 or 4 years. So I started in my late 20s. I'm going to go with that. I could be wrong in timeline, but I tried working it out with my best friend, Katie, to figure out the timeline. And that's the best I could do in figuring that out. Or my memoir, which I'm writing when it will come out, maybe a year from now, maybe longer. But they were gradual, so they love bomb you on your way in. And they have, which I'm going to highlight because your focus is children. There are children to this day that are 10 years younger, sometimes older, only because I brought it up on Amanda Montell's Sounds Like a Cult podcast. Have they written new stuff on their site saying, if you have a child, it's your responsibility to blah, blah, blah. But they are still coercing those children regardless. I don't care what they write. That doesn't cover their legal butt on that.
And they're trying to change children's gender identity. Am I understanding? That's a little...
No, they mainly do that to the adults. The children just get like the mirror exercise. So you're supposed to be already have a lover at that age. That's the best way of putting it. So a 10-year-old or younger or so on. So already getting coupled at that age.
Sex trafficking. We're really talking about sex trafficking.
Yeah, you got it. And adults. I don't know if they've actually done the coupling of it. Some posts I've seen, they've mainly done like the mirror exercise with them, which is gaslighting in itself. Because what you do is say, I'm upset that my mom won't let me have this. It upset me, I won't let me have this. So it turns around on you because they believe in their teaching that everything in your reality. So if something's not working or fit, that's your fault. You manifested that. That's your fault. Just if they're yelling and abusing you, which it's funny because in their Canadian interview, he said he's doing it out of love. So out of love, they yell and abuse you. And that you have to turn that around on yourself with the mirror exercise. So automatically you're just blaming yourself for the abuse you're getting. I like that Keely's brought that up on multiple things, saying that, yeah, if you're getting abused, so if your husband or your wife or someone's abusing you, you just turn it around on yourself. That's mirror exercise. So it's your fault automatically. That's the most terrifying, easy way, coercive way for a abuser to abuse, and it's okay.
So it really reflects on Biderman's coercion chart out of 1957, where Albert Biderman did research during the Korean War with prisoners of war under totalitarian communist regime. And it would be it was interesting. Robert Lifton did some work on this, and Edgar Schein, who basically researched coercive persuasion, right? And these ideas that you could go from this space of knowing something is totally not your fault, that you didn't do it, and that eventually you would be so worn down over time using those grooming tactics, intermittent reinforcement, giving someone something good, then taking it away, over time, slowly eroding their autonomy, that at the very bottom, all of a sudden, you're actually full on admitting to doing something and believing that you did it. That's how much coercion occurs with prisoners of war. And we see this all the time in intimate relationships. We see it in cults where you literally think you must be there's something wrong with you. You must have done this, even though like in the beginning, you knew you didn't do it. You knew that you were not the person that they're making you out to be. But now all of a sudden, everything they say, you actually integrate and believe, which is just the human condition can easily be manipulated. I'm sure, like, you would agree with me, Jessi.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be manipulated to have your whole world changed because I believed for a split, because I did healing sessions to be a divine masculine, I believed I was one for a little bit. And then my brain went, no, you already had red flags. Hello, come back. And that brought me back because my brain started fighting, which I do this anyways with autism and ADHD every day of back and forth. But thankfully, the side of red flag won out on that one. It isn't always the case for those in cults or intimate relationships.
And what you're speaking to again is this vulnerability that you have to be easily, quote unquote, coerced. But the reality is, because of that vulnerability, I feel like you also had like I said, the sixth sense in both situations, in your childhood experiences, right, with drumming, and then in this adult experience. It's quite remarkable that look at all that you're doing now, right? And you're speaking out. And don't you just love the way that we are all now speaking out, that we can't be silenced anymore? Some people can't talk out, and that's why we're doing it, right? Because we can. And so we're the voice for many. Maya Angelou often, her quote, I love it. It says, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And
I
so,
love her so
yeah.
much. I'm glad you
Yeah.
quoted her.
Yeah, we're telling stories because some people can't. And so I really appreciate you being here and appreciate what you're doing. Let's reconnect when your memoir comes out, because I would love to have you back in and talk about that. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Everyone, please remember to like and subscribe, and please hit the bell on YouTube and spread the word as much as possible. This is an epidemic. And I think people live in a world where the glass is half full, and I used to, and there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, and I can be optimistic many a day. But the reality is there are a lot of abusers out there. And the more that we wake up to that and recognize that and spread the word as much as possible, we all know someone. We all know someone who's suffering in some way. Thank you so much, Jessi.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Perfect Prey. You can find the show on my website at iknowyourheart.com or coercivecontrolconsulting.com, or subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts. I'd love your feedback, and I'm always looking for ideas on how to continue to expose coercive control as the significant harm and child abuse that it is. The best way to support the show is to rate and review Perfect Prey on Apple Podcasts. It helps others to find us. Perfect Prey is written by me, Dr. Christine Cocchiola, and with the help of my amazing assistant, Sheena Pastor. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.